Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Freshly Awoken podcast number 3. I've got with me, of course, Mr. Work TV, and
Hey, everyone.
Joined by 2 special guests today. We've got Viiibe down the bottom there.
What's going on?
Louis, should we say Louis or Lewis?
Lewis.
And we got Lewis over there. Guys, would you like to introduce yourselves?
You go first.
Go, Viiibe, go.
Well, my name is Viiibe. Yeah, that's right. 4 eyes, if you wanted to remember that. I really enjoy just listening to really interesting conversations, whether it's something to do with my own journey or listening to people's different perspective that I can learn from. My main streaming platform is around music, guitar, singing, having fun with people. I really enjoy making someone's day more interesting or give them something to, take a break from their boring life. So I'm all about being silly, having fun, but also having real, genuine, heart-to-heart conversations with people. And yeah.
Nice.
Hi guys, I'm Lewis or Louis. I'm the graphic designer for Twitch Brisbane, and I'm also the content manager for Paradox Gaming Australia, which is another gaming org. I'm more behind the scenes, so I stream as much as I can, but I usually do banners and stream overlays for people. So you might see some of my work around, but that's just what I like doing, just making sure people have a professional feel when they're starting out, just make sure that they've got everything they need to become good streamers.
Very nice.
Nice. I do have actually a question. Was the 4 eyes? Is it 4 eyes?
Yeah,
sorry,
4 eyes.
It wigs out my eyes. Was it just you couldn't get Viiibe?
No, 4 eyes.
Wait, did you just say that?
Yeah. No, it was just literally that's the best reason I have to have it. So that's what I figure.
You just go with it. Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
me too.
I just feel like, people always ask why I have it. So it's a topic of conversation. So
that's good.
It works.
Although until you get to making a YouTube channel, and apparently it's too many similar characters for a YouTube channel. How dumb is that?
What?
Anyone
Really?
know that was a thing? Yeah. So stupid.
I can't change my name.
Wait, you can't change your name. What is it now?
Just Viiibe with 1 eye.
Oh, that's rough.
It's so
yeah.
dumb.
So I'm 2 people,
Yeah.
I feel for you.
So, Woke, would you like to introduce our premiere feature of the stream?
Oh yeah, I mean this is what you're all here for, really.
Yeah.
So wait, beer. Wait, oh no, we've done it again.
You just
what
do
are we
you
calling
do
it now?
You go. It's beer review, of course. It's got to be a beer review.
Beer review. Wait,
I got told not to do that.
Beer review? Yeah, I know.
You said
it's
that,
okay.
like beer review. Oh gosh.
Good.
Smooth
Yeah.
section.
No, it's okay.
Explosions in the distance.
I'm on top of my memes, guys. All right, so I know it all. So yeah, everybody grab your beer, or some of us don't have beer, but grab your beverage. And communal crack.
Communal crack.
Cheers, boys.
Hey,
Cheers.
Yes.
Whoa, on the mic.
Yes, on the mic, on the keys,
No.
and now we're done.
Just kidding. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Invisible beer. So what are you guys drinking? So Woke, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So obviously we'll just take it in turns, introduce our beer. So I've got a Cheeky Monkey Brewery West Coast IPA. I know my screen is giving off a bit of light, but hopefully you guys can all see that. So Cheeky Monkey is a brewery down south in Margaret River. West Coast IPA, to be honest, I've never had one before. I've had quite a few IPAs, but never a West Coast one. But I actually don't know much about it. What makes it a West Coast IPA rather than just an IPA or an American IPA? But it says an American style West Coast Indian Pale Ale with bold hop presence and easy drinkability. But yeah, it just kind of caught my eye. When I was at the bottle looking for something to drink, I saw like heaps of West Coast IPAs for some reason, and I've never seen it before. So yeah, I thought I'd jump on it.
Very interesting.
Nice. Very well done.
Viiibe is the second beer drinker.
Let's go Viiibe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of Coronas. They are, in my opinion, the best beverage you can drink on a Friday night. So I went for the Mexican theme and got I'm not sure if this is how you pronounce it. Someone was already racing me on my stream for the mispronunciation today. So
he's going to do it again.
It's called a Sol, and it's
Oh yeah.
Cerveza.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not
that's
sure how you
good. Well
pronounce
done.
it.
Well done.
Yeah, yeah. Soul Cerveza.
Hey,
Oh,
do
nice.
you want to say it the way you said
Uh,
it before on stream?
Yeah, sure.
Curveza. Mexican
Perfect.
curveza.
So second time's a charm. So yeah, it's yeah, I'm hopefully gonna enjoy it because I love Coronas.
Very nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Sweet.
Well, I'm not the most prepared person in the world, but luckily, a roommate of mine had on hand some Black Douglas Scotch whiskey blend with cola, and that is what I'll be drinking tonight,
Hey,
against my will.
alcohol review.
Nice.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I say? Damn, beer review. I screwed it up. Screwed it up early.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
no,
all right.
it is. It's bearable.
And I've got the Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA. Good so far. We'll drink these over the course of the night, and we'll get back to you at the end with our rating for them, ladies and gentlemen.
I said it before. Did you do a hazy beer last week?
No, I didn't do a hazy beer. I did an IPA. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I guess we move on to our topic of the day, which hopefully is what you're actually all here for. Even though the beer is a lovely side benefit, let's call it, which is spirituality, or to be a little bit more direct, spirituality versus materialism. So, Fresh, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, so like Woke said, spirituality versus materialism. I thought I'd start off by just posing a question so we can have like a little bit of a springboard to talk about. So, the first question: are we merely consuming and transacting with this world, this material plane that we live in, without really thinking about how we could transform our own destiny and kind of get involved in the things that are unseen in the world? Where do we find purpose? How much of the unknown can we tap into? What are your thoughts on these things, guys? I mean, that was kind of a few questions, but any thoughts?
Well, I guess I'll share some of my thoughts around it, specifically with spirituality, because I'm very fascinated by it. I'm very interested to hear both of your thoughts as well. But spirituality to me has been something that I never really had in my life as a younger person. And I always felt like I wasn't really open to that kind of stuff for whatever reason. And I think I was missing out on a lot in my life at that time. And the universe has a way of kind of pointing you in the right direction sometimes. And I got really sick when I was young, and it forced me to kind of think my whole life. And I really delved into the spiritual side of life in terms of my own healing journey from my sickness, and I really delved into things like meditation and really developed just a really big perspective on life, and it gave me a lot of joy and happiness back that I was always sort of craving, and just a lot more trust in everything around me, and like meeting friends and that kind of thing. So that's how I feel about spirituality.
Yeah, that's cool. I think me and Fresh had similar kind of upbringings. We both grew up in like a church environment and a church circle. So I am kind of the opposite. I like spent pretty much my entire life growing up immersed in a very spiritual like set of circumstances with my family, obviously believing in God and leading a Christian life and everything that comes with that. But then also like who I was involved with in life. Like all of my friends were like a part of a church, and it was a church community, and everything that I did had something to do with the church. Usually it was very rare that I was doing stuff that didn't have something to do with the church and interacting with people that didn't have to do with the church, until I started getting into my like mid-teens, you know what I mean? So I think that I think personally in hindsight, I think that it was a good thing, which I guess I'll broaden on a little bit later, but I did find that it was smothering in some way. And I guess that is where my kind of point of view comes into it, where it's like you need a balance of both like a bit of materialism and a bit of spirituality. And if you go too much one way or too much the other, it can be very bad for you. That's kind of where I stand on the topic. So
See, I'm like, I was the opposite. So when I grew up, my family didn't we weren't very like religious. We had our own beliefs. Like we all, you know, kind of had our own thing. I wasn't baptized. I wasn't like done. I wasn't, you know, like brought up in that kind of community where there's a church close by or anything like that. All my friends, you know, we all didn't go to Sunday on church on Sundays and stuff like that. But then I went to like a lot of religious schools. So all the schools I went to in Brisbane were all like Catholic schools. So we had to stand up and say prayer every day and blah blah blah. And then the last school that I graduated from was a college that was paramount to, you know, understanding a religious kind of like, I don't know, viewpoint as well. So I had to do a whole bunch of courses at school about religion. I've got my Cert 3 in Christian ministry and theology, even though I don't actually, like I've just done all these things because the school has laid out this pathway that everyone is, you know, supposed to follow, but my beliefs don't correlate to that as much. So I've just kind of done my whole thing. But as Work said, finding the balance, I think I have found that balance because I have been through all these, you know, different kind of scenarios with being in a religious society or community, that I found the balance between respecting it and also keeping my own beliefs. So that's where I kind of stand.
Yeah, cool. What about you, Fresh? Did you have you've had a pretty similar experience to me? Or
yeah. And I always kind of because spirituality, I guess if I break it down to the word spirit, I always thought it meant a little bit more like if someone had like a strong spirit, it wasn't necessarily a religious thing. So more of like a
That's interesting.
Yeah, just a part of their soul that was like the part that you can't really quantify maybe, and why is that important for our lives is kind of what I wanted to tonight.
That's interesting because like I growing up obviously in church, I kind of like went the other route where obviously when you're talking about God, there's like the Trinity, which is like
yeah.
the Father,
So,
the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And
yeah.
I always like the Spirit was always like basically God to me. You know, when someone said Spirit or whatever. Yeah,
I mean,
so
I'm saying that I kind of from a perspective now, I guess. When I was younger, definitely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
I think
cool.
it would have been very similar when we were younger.
Yeah,
I was going to say around both of your experiences of growing up religious. It's very interesting to me because I had no real religious impact on my age up to even till now. I've had not really any religious experiences. How did that make you guys feel interacting with people that didn't have the same, experience growing up? And was it difficult at times trying to relate to them and them relating back to you kind of thing? With spirituality or even your own morals and that kind of thing.
Yeah. 100%. I growing up didn't have a lot of non-Christian friends just because of how there was always some sort of barrier. Like it was always like things that my parents and my family, our morals and our standards wouldn't allow me to be able to do things with my I guess secular friends, you know what I mean? So that definitely affected me and definitely led to me feeling a semi smothered by I guess the church and my spiritual journey in that regard.
When I was definitely young years, but then growing up through high school and then out of high school, actually I always used to joke with my friends because I'd feel more comfortable when I met someone and they say they were a Christian. I'd be like, oh crap, they're gonna be crazy. Whereas I feel like way more comfortable like meeting people who weren't Christians. I'd be like, oh, okay. But I'd weird. I guess I had a different experience.
Yeah, I've had those people as well. Like you go like at school, like because I'm the youngest out of these guys at the moment. I'm only 21, so fresh out of school. I don't know 2015 was when I graduated.
Like your use of
so
the word fresh there. Sorry.
So yeah, quick plug.
Copyright.
Yeah, quick plug. But that was something that like that was the jurisdiction between having a friend sometimes and like kind of avoiding that person is because you knew that they were religious at some point. So you kind of were like, you wouldn't be, I don't know, it wouldn't be as friendly, but you wouldn't connect with them as quickly as you would if you could kind of bond over not believing in God. So like that was something that kids, I don't know, back when I was, back in 2012 or 2011, back when it was like prime to like, oh, are you religious? Like, oh, like get out of here kind of thing. Well, not like that to that extent, but like
Mm.
your friend, you're scared, like you said, like, oh, these guys are going to be like, just put Jesus on me and that's it. But
Yeah.
it's merely the opposite nowadays. It's just like, oh, like you're religious, yep, like okay,
You just
Yeah.
kind of
like
accept
there's
it and move on.
yeah, exactly. There's no, it's just universal nowadays, just to like care. Like there's no real like reason not to care.
Yeah, definitely.
I
How
think
did
that's been a cultural
you go.
shift from like the church and the state kind of being like really intertwined when we were younger, right? And like in terms of Western society, the church and the state were always like really close, and then it's been a slow, gradual like shift apart. And maybe that can maybe lead into another topic or another question where the church doesn't, or the government shouldn't really how should I phrase this? The government shouldn't really prescribe morals so much, and I don't know if they do. They maybe a little bit. They kind of deal a lot more with the material, whereas the church and religion is a bit more dealing with the spiritual side of things. So that poses.
I think you still. Sorry, I think you still see it today. I think that the
yeah.
government and like you specifically see like specific like the like Tony Abbott talking about his faith and being like
Oh yeah, wait, hold on.
like and being like, oh, like I don't believe in this and I'm not going to support this bill because of my faith. And then you're like, well, you're supposed to kind of take that out of that because you're trying to run the country and you're
Yeah,
not
you're
running
governing
you're
governing for
not
everyone
governing
in
it for
Australia.
Christians.
You're not
Yeah,
just
exactly.
governing for.
But then it's also difficult because like he is his own person and has his own beliefs and
Exactly,
should he vote or do stuff against his own beliefs? I don't know. That's very weird. It's a hard topic. That's a hard one.
I think around the politicians and the government having morals, it's very hard for them to have morals because if they're not reflecting the community's morals, then it's irrelevant what morals they have. Like they could have the worst morals possible, but they can inflict them just because they believe them. That doesn't make it fair. You need to have a consensus on morals, surely, what's fair and what's unfair. And if it's just one person deciding against the will of the people, I think it's one of the most dangerous things you can have.
No, yeah, 100%. But like but it's so hard to do that though. Like it's impossible to have like one person that leads for many, that everybody, because what we basically do is we give over our voting right and our power to one person when we vote someone in to like lead us. And man, for that person to like know the majority and know the way it all swings and like not apply his personal bias, I think that would be extremely difficult to do.
Oh, yeah. If you saw something that was like way left field to you and you were the person to actually like change that, like that for me, if I was at that point, I would like have a say in stopping something that just totally like went against what I believed in.
Yeah.
I think that's where the having the power in one hand versus having the power spread more evenly puts the pressure off. One person making every decision for every person in the country is quite a lot to take on. I don't think it's really getting the best out of everyone if you just have one person in charge. And it's spreading the weight across men and women and different cultures and different diversities gives a real like sense of what's fair for everyone, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you think we get that sense of what's fair and what the right thing to do is? What do you guys think? That's something I always think about.
Well, I'm going to say it starts with like your upbringing, I guess. It starts with what you were taught and how you lived your life up until that point, like who you learnt from, who you learnt your manners from, what you watched, what you saw, what you were subjected to when you were younger. Like I reckon that's what kind of like molds you into who or how you would like choose like decide a decision.
Well, that's where I kind of like I agree with you, but that's where I kind of start leaning down the path of and this is something that I firmly believe, that growing up in that church environment, even though it probably stifled me in some ways and maybe wasn't perfect across the board, it actually set me up to have some incredible morals and incredible standards for how I treat other people and how I interact with the world.
Yeah.
That I don't see reflected in a lot of people that I know that didn't grow up the way that I grew up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can see that. Like, if something, like, if you've seen how other people and you want to change that, like, you can certainly, like, there's no stopping. Like, your upbringing can be 100% bad, but then you decide, oh, I don't want it to be bad anymore. So you change, and then now all your goals are the right way. Like, that can totally happen. Yeah, I can understand that.
But like, I would almost like, and I've said this to people before, like, if I even though like currently I'm not like attending a church and I'm not like practicing really like my spirituality in that way, I think, and I've said this to multiple of my friends and stuff like that, that if I had a kid or something like that, I would want them to grow up in a Christian environment.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
Rather than not have that at all, and that connection to that like spiritual connection that it like, yeah, it's so hard. There's so many thoughts and feelings around it that it's so hard to like put what you actually benefit into words. And that was what I kind of struggled with all week, is like putting my experience into like words.
Yeah. See, that would be the same with me. Like, I would want my kid to be somewhere like kind of in the gist of everything, like not be like secluded, totally no religious like inspiration at all, just like totally like going to like some school that didn't have anything to offer. I'd want them to probably go to the same school that I went to, because that was how I learned about how everything kind of worked the way that it does. And I'd let them just go, hey, this is a really good opportunity for you to figure out if you want to continue, blah, blah, blah. I reckon that would be the exact same way that I do it. I'd just like let them choose in that environment first, just to let them know that like, that's what's on offer.
What kind of environment did your school foster for? Like, was there a lot of different things presented, would you say?
No, well, it was obviously mainly Christian,
Yeah.
but it was trying to propose because it was a Christian school. We had a father as our, like, we didn't have like a principal, we had like an actual like father. So we had father
like
head,
a priest dude.
yeah, so he lived on premise.
You said Catholic school, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay. He lived on the premises, didn't move, walked around in a white robe, like he was. That was like how he ran things, and
the Pope.
father, pretty much. And he like drew us to like how things were, and then he actually went off because he went off. So he got a successor, and then he became the Archbishop of Brisbane.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Jeez. You're the big father.
Yeah,
the big dog father.
So he just went off, but that was what was taught, like that kind of religion.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I went to obviously a couple of Christian schools as well growing up, and my school that I went to when I was in Sydney also had like studies of religion course and all that kind of stuff, but it also provided like a little bit, like it had we studied Judaism as well as like a few other religions, just to give I think what they were trying to do was what you're kind of talking about. They were trying to give perspective. They were trying to give knowledge, which is kind of like what a school is there for, and I think that that's kind of like my point, and really what I kept on coming back to this week when I was like thinking about all of this, is that it's that mix of spirituality with all of the rest of the stuff in the world that like makes you the best person that you can be. And I know it's like, it's kind of like, to dumb it down, it's like the more that you take in, the more that you diversify the information you get and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's
better, the better off you turn out,
Exactly.
And I know it's a very easy thing to agree to, but yeah, I just kept coming back to that all week when I was thinking about this.
Yeah, well, I would believe that 100%. No doubts.
It's really interesting because I've never really heard much of anyone's experience with religion, or the connection. Really interesting hearing all of your connection to, I guess, your belief in your morals and your your experience not getting what you need in society, and generally speaking, if you hadn't had that experience when you were younger, having someone just explain to you there is something more than yourself. You've actually got a purpose to give. I think that's very important in people's lives, and I think it is missing hugely in the Western societies. Like, having traveled myself a lot to a lot of Asian countries, they just have this in a joy that I don't think Western countries have managed to work out, because they're just not set up that way. They don't have these really tight knit communities where everyone's looking after each other and everyone's praying together, and they have this belief that they're not the only thing in this world. There's actually other people out there, and they deserve as much help as you do.
Mm.
And I think that's not taught in general society as much as it should be.
Do you think it's
Why do you-
probably maybe
Yeah.
part of our the way our system is set up,
Yeah.
where it's a whole lot of opportunity, but if you don't make it, everyone's got the opportunity to be the prime minister, but if you're not getting there, there's some level of blame, and there's just this there's also a lower class because of that, I guess, and people were kind of all just stepping on top of each other to get up and up the ladder, so to speak. So maybe do you think that the government or the way that the way that society is prescribes that a lot, Western society?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that the way that we have set up, quite like capitalism and how the way our governments work and how they have to be separate from church and state was they have to be separate and all that kind of stuff. I think it removes the spirituality from our governance and our nation, even though I definitely agree that it shouldn't be one specific religion, which that's just such a terrible idea to be we are a Christian nation. But the idea of spirituality, I think, and believing in something greater than yourself, whether that doesn't necessarily have to be a god, it can be just a connection to the community around you and to living beings. You obviously have spirituality can mean so many things to different people. It can mean, I don't know, life spirits in rocks and stuff like that. But that belief that there's something greater and something that you can connect to, and it's important to connect to that, and connections are important, and not just living for, obviously, the flip side of that, materialism, and not just living the here and now and doing things. I think is definitely something that's kind of lost in the way that our government is set up and our nations are set up in the West.
I was going to say that on your topic around materialism and getting as many things as you desire, and then getting to the end of it and sort of just feeling like you've got nothing really of any value. You've just got this weird short-term joy, little signal going off in your brain. And I personally don't think the government can ever provide the vessel for spirituality, because it's just not designed that way, and it never will be, because
it's not universal.
it's just not. And even in the countries where religion is really, really high, like in the Muslim countries and those kinds of things, that the government's not teaching them the values. I don't think that. I think the government can play a role in educating and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they do need some part in bringing at least some of it to the attention. But I just don't think you want your spiritual leaders to be the people in parliament, to me.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yeah, I don't think that's really what I was getting at. I was more just trying to say that there's an absence of that spirituality in the way that our countries are set up, and instead of it being really good because it means it means that if you don't particularly subscribe to this one type of spirituality, which was the reason for it, what it's done is it's made everybody focus on this completely other way to live, which is capitalism, which is I need wealth, I need money, I need money to enjoy my life, I need
That's
money
very
to
true.
survive. And I think that was what I was trying to get at. I was trying to get at. I think that might be the bad thing. And I to be honest, I don't know how to fix it. I'm not here with the answers. But
do you think a part of it is the fact that a lot of the culture that's being brought from, I'm just talking from Australia point of view, there isn't a lot of different. I mean, our native Indigenous society, we don't get to share a lot of their culture because we shun it away. And I think that's. Imagine if that was a part of our lives more. It's so interesting learning about how they lived for thousands of years with their different spiritual beliefs. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
I'd just love to, I wish it was a part of society more, because I think I really think they have a connection to each other that we don't have. And I think that comes from that spiritual truths that you get told as a child, or, believing in something that makes you feel like you actually have a real connection to live. The reason to live is to feel, amazing, is to feel hopeful and full of joy. And it's not suffering. You're not just meant to suffer for your whole life and just grind away until you get to the top of the pyramid. You're supposed to appreciate and be mindful of every moment in the day because it's bloody amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I
That's
agree
good.
with you 100%. And especially around, I mean, it hits home for me just because, I mean, probably all of us, just because we are Australian, all of us. And like,
Or white Australian as well.
yeah, white
Yeah.
Australian, I definitely think that that's the biggest thing that I'm getting out of like a lot of Aboriginal issues coming to the forefront these days is that I feel that void. I feel that absence of their presence in my life, and I want that to be more. But I think that what you're speaking to a bigger thing, and I think that it'll be really good to focus on like Aboriginal spirituality and how that is
Yeah.
a part of every Australian,
Yeah.
but also like we were saying, diversity matters, and
Yeah.
not just saying, look, no church and state government won't have anything to do with like spirituality at all. Maybe they could say, actually, we are going to legislate that there needs to be some curriculum around different spirituality cultures and learning about it, because the one thing that connects like every single different type of spirituality, whether it be Christian or Muslim or spiritual rocks, is that they're all about connection and they're all about people and healing and life and love. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
there's something to say that, hey, like, we're not saying that you have to believe one of these things, but we're at least going to teach you about everything, or try our best to include everything in your learning so you have as many perspectives as possible. I think that's definitely a good thing for the government to be doing.
And that goes back to what you said about getting as many inputs as possible, like so you can decide with your whole heart, and because you've known like how things go, like you've like learnt so much that you can make a more structural decision, like you said before. I reckon that would be a good idea.
And there's
Yeah.
so much to gain from every part of society, every part of life. Like there's not one greater thing than another, unless it's overly negative. But if it benefits us, I think we should take ideas from every culture and race. And I'm saying like I'm writing a song, but I just think I think that would genuinely make Australia, a more of an optimistic place. I'm not saying it's a negative, but just in terms of giving you something really to live for, other than just your job.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is and I love what you said before, Vibe. How what we're really here for is to live, and like to enjoy that life. Like we're not here to suffer, and that's something that I think that is so true. And I see people, when I see people that are like suffering through their life, or they like hate what they're doing and whatnot like that, I'm like, why are you doing that? Oh man, it just bugs me so much.
And you hear those stories about people that like say that like, oh, I was homeless and I'd lost my job and all that kind of thing. And the one thing they found solace in was religion. Like that is something that can bring people back from feeling that the way they are, is that like they found Jesus and they can actually, feel like they've got someone behind them, even when they've got nothing. So that means that just gives a standing to spirituality, saying like, hey, it's not just, what people believe in. It's actually something there that actually helps people through times.
Yeah. Do you guys think that like what are the good parts of materialism that you guys can see? Because like I know that, like I've said, that a healthy balance. I think that a healthy balance of both is important.
I think one of the best things about it is how it spreads. It does gather wealth for a country. Like it takes countries who are in poverty into a first world country, and that's why capitalism has worked so well in so many countries. But it has, a tipping point where it starts to become, unachievable to do more than 100 years, because you're chewing up every bloody resource in the country.
Yeah.
And there's nothing left. I mean, you can only do that for so long, and sometimes you don't have a choice if your population's starving or you're in war times. But there's no reason anymore to stick to that way of thinking. I mean, we're smarter now. We should know how to do things more fair. To not give the top end of town every break that they deserve, and start lifting the bottom of the country up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem that we still face every single day.
Definitely.
Yep. Yeah. What was your initial question? What was it?
I was just saying, like, what parts of materialism? Because it's like it's very easy for people
what's
to be
the
like,
benefit?
spirituality
Yeah.
versus. But like, what parts of materialism are like actually bad?
Yep. I guess like you see, well, it's really good to be able to lift people out of a destitute situation that they're in, particularly in those developing countries where they're really struggling to be able to. They're probably. I mean, you see an abundance of spirituality in those cultures with very low materialism. So, to be able to help them out of those situations, because we know that if people are starving, that's not enough. They're not doing well enough. But there's definitely a point. I'm pretty sure there's lots of studies that go into there's a person earning. I remember watching something and it was like if a person's earning like $5,000 a year, they're not going to be very happy or very fulfilled. If they're earning $50,000 a year, they're going to be pretty happy. But then if they're earning 50 million, the difference is like not very big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Limited.
Have you heard that there's like a stat going around where it's like the poverty, the level of like people around across the entire globe that are in poverty, it's like we're slowly clawing it back. So it's like what considered poverty, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is it? I know you kind of threw out a number there, Vibe, and I'm sure that you were just like kind of throwing out numbers that like 100 years of capitalism or whatever. But like when we are seeing that growth around, especially the economy, and seeing us bringing these people out of poverty, and it's continual, like it's still going, like how is it? How can we stop that? How can we say that is a bad thing, that we're continually progressing and bringing people out of poverty? Or are you saying that once it stops doing that, then it becomes a bad thing?
No, what I'm saying is that until before capitalism existed, they didn't have anything half as good as capitalism. Then when capitalism came out, people started using it in terms of, and I think we've advanced as a society way beyond I mean, capitalism has done what it's done for many countries, but it's been at a big cost. It doesn't come with, without any negatives. It comes with a huge cost to the resources on the planet that we're going through every single day. The pollution the lack of moral and care for our genuine living space. That has limits. You can't just do that forever and bring people out of poverty and kill the planet at the same time. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean. I get what
It's
you're
like
saying.
a balance there. I think the you call them the Nordic countries. Is that those
yeah,
ones,
the
like,
Nordic countries.
Nordic countries?
They're on top of that stuff.
Yeah. So they had obviously an abundance of wealth at a point, and then they've, I think the term social democracy, where they put an emphasis on welfare and education and things like that, so that people who are in that lower kind of portion are able to then come into the working class and able to generate back into that capitalism, because they still are a capitalist. They're a social democracy, so they still have those systems in place that generate wealth for the economy, but they have also systems that help the people who are really low down. So you got to wonder where you hit that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and I think when we figure that out, that'll be the
yeah.
that's the real that's the
wake up call.
$50 question. When do we figure that one out?
Instantly I go into capitalism mode and I'm like, I'll put my money on. I'm like,
it's all in. I have a question for everyone here.
Yeah.
So in terms of your own lives, have you had many? Well, like what do you define as a spiritual experience? And have you experienced one? How many times have you experienced it? What did it feel like? What did you remember about the experience?
Okay.
I haven't felt anything spiritual in my lifetime, but yet I'm not looking at something like that in that sort of way. So maybe something has happened, but I've thought of it the way that I would like something else. So I'd play it off. I wouldn't think like, I can't think of any examples, but like I myself have not said, oh, that's a spiritual feeling for me. Like, I guess like I'm not looking at things with trying to find a meaning behind it. I'm like, oh, that happened. Like that's all that's going to happen, I guess. But that, that's just my own opinion about it. Like I've just never felt that something's happened spiritually for me.
Yeah. I like growing up in church, it's hard because like looking back and like with the perspective that I have on life now, it's very easy for me to dismiss the experiences that I had when I was younger as emotional fancy, or as like uh or as like things that I've experienced since then. I like I'm more readily put down to my like human like human attributes, you know, like a conscience, or like, oh yeah, like I reached that inside my mind of my own doing. But when I was younger, and when I was not like indoctrinated, but like when I was in the church, and believing that there was a God, and that he could talk to you, and that he would help you through things, and that there was like a conversation and a bond between you. Back then, I would tell people that 100% that I had experienced a spiritual connection with something, you know.
Mm.
But since then, and I don't like, and sometimes, to be honest, sometimes this makes me like ridiculously sad, and it's a source of, I don't know, never ending frustration for me that I can't figure it out. That is what I'm experiencing now actually the same thing, and is it a spiritual being, or am I just putting it down to my own thought processes now, and it's not, and it's actually my thought processes, and I run around in circles. My thought process runs around in circles forever.
Do you reckon that's
Yes.
because you're not as heavily like surrounded by the people you were back when you were younger, so they were kind of fortifying that idea?
Well, I get, yes, and that's what I say is like, it's very hard. It's very easy for me to dismiss my experiences when I was younger, and these days say like, oh, like it was a very like, yes, the emotion was built up. You know, it was always in, like there was always it was always around emotional times, and it was always around like different things that were happening that were like pretty heavy impact things that these experiences happened. But I don't know why that discounts them as spiritual, I guess, encounters. If
Mm.
I felt like they were spiritual encounters, like, and I, at the time, I 100% believed that they were.
Mm.
And yeah, and it's very easy to put it down to that. But just because I'm like, my thought processes has changed, and I think in a different way now, and I have more life experiences. That doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a spiritual experience.
Mm.
You know, maybe I've talked myself out of believing that it was a spiritual experience. You know,
Just
and like,
overthinking.
how would I ever know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's,
fair
man,
enough.
seriously, I run around in circles with this shit all day.
Yeah.
Man, it drives me insane.
Mm.
Yeah. No,
And
That
there's
wouldn't be fun.
sorry, go on.
then there's one thing that I feel is very common in both of the way you're talking about, in that often overthinking overrides any sense of feeling you have, and that breaks the whole experience into just a normal logical experience. Oh well, you know, just rained in today. I got struck by lightning. You know, I think that spirituality and the experiences that come with them often are not describable by words. It's sort of just like a feeling you have that is so different from everything else in your life. And I think we're so quick to write that off as just, you know, oh, we don't understand that. So that's just something in your head, man. You just don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the reason that societies have existed for thousands and thousands of years and had spirituality as a cornerstone to their way of living. I mean, they rely on these people for their logic and their instinct that other people couldn't give, and it kept them through, you know, tsunamis. And I mean, there's literally there's a country near India, and it wiped out a massive amount of people with a tsunami in India, and somehow these really old hunter-gatherer societies survived without any casualties, and they don't have any technology, or you know, they don't have the ability to read the weather pattern greater than anyone else, but somehow they can navigate that. So I still think we don't understand it fully, and we kind of shun it a bit too much.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it's like also work like maybe it's like kind of like a scenario, like you haven't been forced into a scenario where a spiritual like answer would be the answer, like maybe you just haven't had a feeling strong enough, or you haven't had something happen to you that merits that spiritual kind of like answer, like maybe you just have been living your life to a point where, you know, it's normal enough when nothing's really kind of like popped out of the ordinary or something like that.
Yeah, or like as you mature, you become able to deal with these things on your own more. Therefore,
Exactly, yeah.
you rely on the spirituality side of things less, just because you can cope. You know, and you
Exactly.
don't need a connection,
Yeah.
or a higher being or the belief in a higher being to
Mm.
settle yourself down and whatever. I don't have the answer here. Once again, it's
Well,
one of
even
those
then,
things
like
that
saying,
I'm still trying to work through.
well, even that, like saying that, like the fact that you've gotten older and you've gotten the ability to understand these things without there being, like just chuck it under the spirituality carpet, like that still just brings back belief that there's no like difference. Like you can still have a spiritual experience, but you're just old enough now that you can finally understand what is actually spiritual. So when you're confused about was that a spiritual, it's just like, if it wasn't, maybe it wasn't a spiritual, and like maybe you're actually like, that was just something that you overcome by yourself, regardless of it being spiritual or not. So it doesn't actually mean that you can not be confused, but like you have a better understanding of what is and isn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like I said, I do not know. It's like one of those things that I'll never get my. I feel like maybe one day I will. I'll let you know. Vibe, you were saying that you didn't really grow up with any connection to like really spirituality or spiritual ideas or anything like that, but that you've come to get like an appreciation of it that hasn't translated into any kind of spiritual experiences.
I've had lots of spiritual experiences the last two to 3 years, and I'm someone who grew up really. I'd describe myself as an atheist, pretty much. I had no belief at all in God, and I opted out of learning the Bible course studies at primary school, and this was like my parents aren't anti-religious by any means. They weren't religious, but I was just, for some reason, I was objected to the authority. I don't know why. And then later in life, I sort of was forced to rethink my life, and in that way, it just opened me up to all these possibilities that I just closed my mind off to before, and it really held me back as a person, because I couldn't just converse with anyone, no matter their religious belief or whatever they believe in. You just can get along with anyone if you just just have an open mind, I think. And my spiritual experiences came from a lot of deep meditation that I've done. So with meditation, what it's allowed me to do is, the way I describe it is, you're kind of born as a glass of water, like an empty glass of water, and that fills up when you're born. So you're just all clear, perfect energy, happy, glowing, bubbly child. And over the time, things happen to you that you kind of put in that cup, like, so some dirt starts forming on the bottom, and then all of a sudden, like your best friend's girlfriend cheated on him, or cheated on you or something, and then another trauma happens to your life. So you keep filling up this cup. Eventually, all there is there's no longer this clear cup anymore. It's solid grit and mud that you can't function through emotionally. You've just buried up all these things on top of each other. And meditation just clears one layer at a time until you've got that cup that just has just deep perspective, and you see things clearer. Like your awareness my awareness just changed a lot, and I became a lot more accepting of my life, and feeling, and I'm just being more compassionate towards people, really having empathy. I think empathy is a really important thing to have in life. And the more you can practice and preach it, the better someone's life you can make.
Maybe the most important thing you can ever teach kids is empathy.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that you talk about meditation that way. Because I was going to say, I'm not a person who really is a believer in supernatural things too much, but definitely when I think about like praying or spiritual things that happen to me, it's like a form of, it's meditation. So you sit down or you lie down in bed, and it's just like you're saying, these layers, this removal of burdens as you're working through these things, or these things are being lifted from your mind. And my spiritual experiences have been more when I get down to the bottom, and then you have these, because I was saying this on stream the other day. I don't know where do original thoughts really ever come from. Like, we have so much stuff that's inside of us all the time, and stuff that's preached at us all the time, that very hard to have your own original thoughts about things. So my most spiritual experiences, I guess I would say, would be when I've had thoughts that are particularly original, and I've been like, man, where does that come from? I suppose you just say you think about it.
That's fair enough.
Sounds like a bad,
Well, in saying what Vibes, like in continuing what Vibes said about having that glass, like since I'm not religious and I've never meditated, like I've gone to the scouts and I've done like the the leadership camps at school and stuff like that. And since it's being like more of a religious school, they've kind of gotten you to do those things. I never really had. I don't know. I didn't pay attention as much. Or I didn't give it as much forethought. But now thinking about it like that, the way that if I could describe, my body being that glass is just my glass is just never ending. Like it's just a really tall glass. And the fact that my, like, instead of there being a point where I have to meditate or something like that, my glass just keeps getting more and more full. But it's just my glass never ends. So there's no real reason for, in my understanding, for me to meditate or get rid of any of that, because I know that it's just I can take it, or I can, just keep going, because I know that it's never going to get to a point where I'm just going to pop, and that would be like my expression of that.
Yeah, right.
That's good.
I once again, the idea of meditating is something that I definitely prescribe to. Most of my spiritual experiences that I would say that I would have had happened during some sort of or form of meditation, I would say, whether it's like just seclusion or shutting myself off from everything that distracts me and affects me, and just being still and thinking. And but yeah,
What would be an example that, if you were willing to share, of like just in like a spiritual like feeling that you've gotten from being in meditation?
So obviously, I mean, growing up, you have a myriad of problems. You're
Mm.
faced with, puberty and girls and bullying and school and like the temptations of like drugs and partying and all that kind of stuff, right? And like most of my mainly my spiritual experiences were around those things, around crisis about those things, around
Mm.
me being in a terrible place because I wasn't allowed to do something, or I didn't want to do something, or I was being bullied, or something like that. You know what I
Mm.
mean? But I always found, or like I found that I could, and especially, I mean, maybe it was just facilitated by the church, that I was taught to go and pray about it,
Mm.
that I was taught to um, to spend regular alone time with God, um, whatever with God means,
Mm.
that I removed myself from things like if I was struggling, I would go and I would seclude myself, and and like it's weird because in my head I would have a conversation, but what was I just like I wasn't necessarily getting answers, but like I was talking, like
Mm.
what do
Yeah.
you do when you go and see a therapist? The
Mm.
therapist doesn't sit there and give you all the answers.
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
you go there and you talk.
Mm.
You just talk and you talk and you talk, and it's therapeutic.
It's
It's therapeutic
removing
Yeah.
burdens over and
voicing
over.
your thoughts
Yeah.
and relieving your burdens. And I don't know, maybe that's just what it was, but like I could always go into those places and ask for a sense of calm. I could always go into those places and ask for like a like self-realization, or help figuring it out an issue or whatever. And it's so easy, and it was so easy at that young age to be like, well, when I asked for something, when I asked God for something, it happened.
Mm.
Mm.
you know
Mm.
like when I really desperately needed it, and like that's a big contention with the church. It's like, well, like if God's good, then why does this stuff happen? But like he doesn't, like I understood at the time that like he doesn't get himself involved in everything,
Mm. Yeah.
like that's just impractical for life, and
Yeah.
us living our own lives. But when I really desperately needed him growing up, I had the experience of being able to go to him and basically having prayers answered.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was that, like, without going probably more specific than that, which there's not really a great point to it, because that was the bulk of my spiritual experiences, where I was like blown away to the point of like being in very dark, very, very dark places, and coming back from those very, very dark places and feeling this complete sense of like joyful abandon, because of the fact that I was able to just ask for it, and it happened.
Just talk it
You
out.
know?
Yeah.
And it super, and it happened on multiple occasions. This is not a thing that just happened once. But then now that I'm a bit older, I look back and I go like, well, what was was my mind just fucking great?
Yeah.
Your mind was Albert Einstein in the future.
Yeah. I still don't know to this day, and it's weeks me out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I've never had an experience like that where I've had to just, think about, if something detrimental has happened to me, like a couple of things in my life, I can say that it would have been something that I would have wanted to pray about. Like it was stuff that I never want to relive, blah, blah, blah. And there's stuff like that where I wish I probably had something like that, because there was times where sitting alone by myself, just talking to someone about it would have been just the perfect escape for that. And potentially having a result like you had might have meant such a difference. So it's really interesting to talk about.
Can I share experience I had with spirituality? So just to make it so people understand how unique it is, and everyone, I think it's important just to know everyone doesn't have to be into spirituality or necessarily need it in their life. Everyone's different, but my experience of spirituality comes from the meditation point of view, in terms of as I would break down a layer and get to a deeper layer, it was almost like I let the ghost out, and I could feel how much pain and trauma I'd been carrying around, and I didn't quite understand until I just sat with it in silence for hours upon weeks, that you just get this. It's unbelievable the feeling you get inside yourself. It's like all these things open up that I didn't even know I had before, and it just made me feel so like I'd been carrying around this 100-kilogram backpack on my back, and I didn't even realize until I started to actually give it silence and attention.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that describes quite a lot of a few of my experiences as well, and it also describes a lot of experiences that I've heard people talk about in the church. You know what I mean? So whether or not that is specifically Christ or God, or if it's something that we're all inherently connected to, or if it's just our own minds being smart, I think it's one of those things that we're never gonna kind of I think that our minds are incapable of figuring that out.
Yeah,
personally.
I mean, I was actually thinking today. I was playing Fortnite.
Oh wow!
Spiritually awoken.
Spiritually awoken. No, and I had a spiritual. No, not really. But I was my dog came up and he was I was patting him, and I was my dog has no idea what Fortnite is, right? But Fortnite's still there. It's still a thing. So there are things that we're we're completely limited by. We have, what do we have? Is it 6? No, we have 5 senses. And we we assume that our priority should be around. I think that's why we prioritize the material in our Western culture, at least, is because our senses show us that these things are very important for us. Whereas there's there's the spectrum of light, and we can only see a minuscule part of it. I'm sure that that's pretty similar in terms of what our senses can see and what else is there. There's probably this whole other realm that we're not able to really tap into, that we don't prioritize because we can't see and experience it. So our dominant social idea is that we need more and more stuff.
So what you're saying is that spirituality is Fortnite, and we are dogs.
Exactly. Spirituality is Fortnite.
We're
Having
dogs to someone.
V-Bucks is spiritual
enrichment.
Yeah.
No, that's material vibe. Get out of here, man. Vibe's not very good at Fortnite, guys. Just like
I'm really bad. If anyone wants to carry me, please give me your email address. I'm desperate for wins.
I was not being
Sorry,
serious.
you guys are doing it's solo wins. You guys are
solo
doing, right?
wins. Yeah. Actually, someone carry him, please. Then that doesn't count for our competition.
Avoids the $1,000 donation you already owe me from me winning so far.
Oh crap! I forgot to wear my hat. I didn't even think about it until now. Fly just said.
No.
That actually is real weird. That's the first time I've not worn.
I thought that was what you were doing.
I thought you were just chilling, off brand,
Yeah,
like you're not fresh Flames Live. You're freshly awoken at the moment.
Too late now. Jeez. Oh well, I'm not bald, guys. Haha.
I am. That's why I'm wearing a hat, guys. So.
Yeah, me too.
I'm becoming bald, so I'm leaving. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
so not let's change tack a little bit. So
Okay.
I know we've well, not really changed in tack heaps, but we've been talking a little bit about obviously my experiences and a couple of our experiences when we were younger compared to when we were adults.
Mm.
So I noticed that Lewis, you put in something here that about mental well-being and um, how spirituality versus materialism can be important for our mental well-being and struggling as a do you want to go into what you were talking about there?
Yeah. So since I knew going into this that I was going to be one of the younger people, and so my understanding is going to be a little bit skewy from everyone else's because there's
Mm.
there's 6 to 7 years difference between the closest people. That my upbringing was purely just agnostic, not really like atheism, but like we just didn't really have something to lay back on. We didn't go to church, we didn't do anything like that. So all of my understanding of how I should be, like how my emotions were in check and how stuff like that was brought up by my parents and how they taught me. And then my understanding was all logical and I had to find an explanation for something like that. So my mental wellness and then also tapping into materialism a little bit was just I needed things to make me happy. So I wanted to, instead of, confronting, going up to my like a spiritual, like, I don't know, emotion that I had like in store, like I just wanted to pray it out or something like that, I'd go and get a milkshake or I'd go and just have a walk around. Like that would be like probably the difference that I was trying to say there is just like, since I had no spirituality or had no religion in my life, I was trying to find other ways to fix my mental health
Yeah.
by obtaining things. So tapping into materialism again, just like having things made me happy because I didn't have a religion to,
Mm.
I guess, use my thoughts as a conduit.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah.
what I was trying to say there. So I didn't have like, did you guys, when you like, obviously like having things makes you happy, like it's a little bit self-explanatory sometimes, like having a new computer is always going to make you happy, but
Mm.
also if you could go without having that computer and just being happy because you knew that something else was going to come along later, like that
Yeah.
was something else that I
I
couldn't
always
get
think
around.
there's like there's always a limit to how happy you, well, even just generally how happy you can be, because you can only have so much stuff, I guess, so material wise. And then even and like when I tell people near the end of school like what they want to look for when they're looking for a job and stuff, it's something, I think meaningful is probably a better word than happy, because you get we're always looking for something that will make us happier, and then we get there and then I got to look for something that makes you happy. But if you find something really meaningful, it can give you like a big sense of fulfillment that lasts, can last forever.
Yeah.
I think there's a really good reason that a lot of scientific studies have been done on why giving makes you feel so happy and so at peace with the world, because we're inherently designed to be a communal society. We're not designed as predator hunters where we go off wandering by ourselves. We're meant to be in a pack together, and ideally you want that to be where you give to each other, not just look after yourself and race to the top to get the fanciest car that really, how long is that happiness going to last? 1 month, 2 months, even 6 months? You're going to hit that point eventually. If you're not giving back to something, I think it's very hard to feel real joy. Do you guys? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, well, that's something that, like, since I'm living in a house with a whole bunch of other streamers, and we all kind of know how things roll within the Twitch community, like the kind of, the unwritten rules and stuff like that of Twitch and that kind of thing. We always joke around with like saying, "Oh, if we got like $1 million, the first thing I'd do would just be spend a whole bunch of money on donations and making people feel happy," because like watching all
that's
those Mr.
cool.
Beast videos and stuff like that, like that's always something we draw on. Is like, if I got a bunch of money, my first thought isn't to go buy a house or isn't to go buy a plane. It's to give it to someone else that would make me. And that is like when Vibe said that, I was just like, I 100% agree. Like that feeling happy is when I'm doing something for someone else.
I really don't like when people say, you shouldn't do it because it makes you feel good. Well, why not? Like, you're not doing anything bad by making yourself feel good. You're helping someone to do something nice. I don't understand that logic at all.
I guess there is, like, if you do get technical with it, there's like some boundaries that you need to keep. Like, make sure it's not one person. Make sure it's not a bad person. Like, you have to try and fit within the, your conscience. But like, having that thought as my forefront thought is like I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the only thing I would add to it, and you were kind of touching on then, is that there does need to be a boundary, and this kind of comes back into what I've been thinking all week, is that you need that balance. You like, it's all very well to be like spirituality and giving, and it's really great, but if it ends up going to your detriment, setting you up like materialistically for a terrible life, then I don't think that that's worth it, because in the long run, you're probably gonna hurt your spirituality, I think, personally.
Yeah, you won't be able to see the difference between giving to someone good and giving to someone bad, because you know that giving is just the good thing. So that is like where your like thoughts stop. Like, you've given it, that's it. You don't kind of think through to who it goes to or what happens with whatever you've given. And that would be the balance, is knowing afterwards like why you'd give that person something in the first place. Like, that would be how you balance it out, I guess.
Yeah. So can I pose a question that I touched on in my notes? I haven't really brought it up, but I'm really passionate about medicine playing a role in spirituality, in terms of how our ancestors use medicine to guide us through spiritual times or difficult decisions or hunting, and how that plays a big role, I think, in someone who's after spirituality, who doesn't have it and they want to experience something very different and have a different. I think that plays a really important role.
Yep.
As in, are you talking about drugs?
I'm talking about drugs. I'm talking about
the drugs. Yeah.
I'm talking about the old green machine. No, but like, seriously though, like, it's. I mean, it's medicine to me, and I know some people may not agree with that, but to me, there's a great benefit other than just the fact that it has a medical benefit, but a spiritual benefit, emotional benefit too.
There's some really interesting studies. Sorry, go.
Oh, I was going to say, I can get on that level as well. Like, I see like people where the only like, I don't know, the only cure to something is the THC oil or something like that, where that is something that is beneficial for it, but that's like leading into another topic, like whether or not it's good because of this. But I can agree with Vibe saying like, some things it is needed because you cannot like get it elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's I was looking into this the other day, and I mean, I've never done any like psychedelics or anything like that, but there's some really interesting studies, and I have to say this properly because it was a weird. So like, they made people who are addicted to smoking, which is meant to be like one of the really, really hard, as in nicotine, meant to be a really, really hard habit to kick, obviously. If those people took a psychedelic drug and had what they would describe as a spiritual experience through that experience, there was like a 85 to 90% chance that they were going to be able to quit smoking right then and there, like bang. And I was like, what the hell? That's insane. Like, it's such a weird, it's crazy.
The more I've heard that research, and a lot of the studies they're doing now on hallucinogenics backs up a lot of what it does in terms of scientific evidence from the brain point of view. It resets a lot of these neural pathways that we've got set in stone, and they were used by our ancestors and our hunter-gatherer. Basically, we haven't changed a lot physically in 100,000 years. We're the same body as we were then. And, the fact that they exist in nature, and a lot of things in nature obviously can harm you, but a lot of things are also very beneficial. The research coming back is honestly really exciting to me.
Yeah. I think that I agree that they can definitely be helpful, but I think that it's in certain situations. What I definitely agree with is like literally almost like all drugs across the board being legalized in some way to facilitate further research. Because right now we've got this thing where it's like taboo. It's like, oh no, that's bad. Like meth, that's bad, and it just does bad things, and everybody thinks it's bad because all we see is bad things in our society from it. But if it got made legal to the point where we could do proper research and proper studies with it, and I'm not saying that meth is good, definitely not saying that. In fact, I think it's probably bad. But like even like marijuana.
Are you sure? Do you want to try some on the show next time?
Like,
study?
Hang on a second.
I can give it.
What a coincidence!
Here's some I prepared earlier.
TOS.
So And
See, that's irony, okay? That's irony. It's not real.
irony, yeah. See,
Irony, okay.
I did hold up. That was my wallet.
Just don't ironically say the N word.
Yeah. But I think that sorry, just to not making light of it. I think that we need to do way more research than we're doing, and if legalizing these drugs in some way will raise the level of research and facilitate the level of research, so we can figure out what they actually can do and how they can help, and in what situations they can help. That's 100% a good thing. But I definitely don't agree with legalization to the point where it's just like, well, these helped a couple of people, so, or these helped
A certain type of people.
99 out of 100 people, therefore we're just going to make it, or maybe 99, but like 80% of people it helped, therefore we're just going to make it legal for everybody, and we're just going to have like 20% of people that just get fucked up on marijuana.
It's got to be a certain type of person, because there's a lot of type of people that get anywhere near drugs and it just ruins their lives. So there's
very interesting and research on percentage of people that take drugs. Most people that take drugs take them casually. So most people aren't addicts. There's less than 5% of drug users are actually chronic addicts. A lot of people use them for parties or take them. I mean, the average person who takes it is only once a fortnight or once a month. So it's actually, there are people who have no problem with drugs, but they're tarnished with the effect of the chronic addicts, which need serious attention and should be treated very severely. And it's a problem. It's a big problem. But you can't treat everyone with the same brush. And a lot of people who function perfectly fine on lots of things that we consider really harmful without any proper research. I mean, you can't research it if it's illegal. So how are you going to find out if it's good or not?
Yeah, I suppose that's the classification of it. Like, these people clearly have got a problem, and it gets classified as a criminal problem, which doesn't help them at all, really, or society for that matter. Progressive.
No, it just pushes the problem down the road, doesn't it, to the next person? Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talk about different studies and different benefits of like lots of different drugs, and from what I can tell, the general consensus is we have been doing it wrong, and it was like a small minority of very powerful people that were like, this is bad because capitalism, I want to make money. And
the old capitalism logic.
And if I can block this, then I'll make money on being on the profitable side of that block, and I think that we need to 100% look at it across the board and make another decision on how we address drugs in general. Yeah.
Suppose we should, quick disclaimer also, we've got a lot of young audience. Like, things when you're under the age of like 25 are pretty tough to
100%. It's like everything. I mean, I know it's very easy to say don't do it, and like people go out and drink alcohol even though they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
But
all that stuff affects you in negative ways.
I definitely prescribe to the ethos, to the belief that like if you're under like 21, 20 to 25 range.
Lewis is still a child.
Yeah. No, I'm listening. I'm not saying anything.
Any kind of wine altering drug or something can definitely do probably more harm than good.
Yeah.
Well, that was something when I was taught, like growing up, because like you hear the horror stories at schoolies that someone has tried these things and just totally gone the wrong way. Like two people have taken the same thing, but one of them ends up in hospital, the other one just ends up on the side of the road just having a good time. Like there is just such a divide sometimes, and then that was what scared me so much. Like when I was younger, before, when I had my schoolies, I was just like, my mum was, because she worked at a hospital, and she was in the ICU. So she saw all these people come in during those November, December, like schoolies, where it was just all those people. It was horrifying. And the one thing, there was a story she told me, this girl had never taken drugs before, first time at schoolies. She woke up in the hospital with like a bloody mouth and a bloody cheek, and it was just, there was a bunch of blood on her pillow, and people were like, oh, what happened? She had fallen asleep while on MDMA, and her brain hadn't shut down while she slept, so she kept chewing. She had chewed the inside of her cheek off to the point where it was like just millimeters of skin left, and that to me scared me straight. I was not going to do drugs, haven't done drugs still. Like that is just in my mind, like, oh my god, like I cannot think that would be a thing. But then again, saying that, like, that is the 1%, or like that is the 20% of people that get negatively affected. Like there could be the other people that like just had a good time after that.
Yeah, I think it is also like there's also people. So there's people that are inherently going to have bad reactions to different drugs and different chemicals and stuff like that. But then
Like
there's also
alcohol,
the
for
fact,
example.
yeah, like
alcohol's a good
alcohol,
one.
100%. And I'm not saying this as like an argument for like against some sort of legalization. I'm saying it in terms of young people using drugs that
Yeah.
like not only are there
And
those
alcohol.
people when you're younger, and alcohol, yeah, not only are there those young people that aren't predisposed to having bad reactions, there's also a lot of emotional instability. There's also
Yeah.
a lot of
You've still got a lot to learn
pu-
before.
puberty.
Yeah,
You
for
don't know
sure.
your place in the world. You're still trying
Yeah.
to figure out who you are, and trying to figure that stuff out. And you taking these things and you getting drunk and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The path that it leads you down is not always good,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
like compounds the problem
Definitely.
of the amount of negative impacts it has. I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon that that's such an important point for anyone who's listening who's younger than let's say 21 or 25. Whenever your brain, in my opinion, when your brain's fully developed, I think you're safe to have a go. You know what I mean? Like as long as it's safe to you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that the younger you start on any of these drugs or any of these substances that can affect your consciousness, I don't think a lot of people are ready by that age. I think that you can take something too early and have a really fucking terrible experience. And then that leads to like all sorts of problems that you never had in the first place. And I think all these things should be taken into that under that context of that not everyone's ready to do these things when they're young.
Yeah. I guess like to top that off, it'd be just like the overall thing is just make sure you know what you want before you do anything. Like make sure that like you're in your head, you're ready, because you know that like if you do anything now, it's just going to end poorly. There's like a 50-50 chance. And if you're not willing to risk that yet because you know you've got so much more to do before starting any of this, then that's what I'd take away from it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but just to like go back to like how we kind of originally got onto the topic was that we were talking about how drugs can potentially facilitate some of these spiritual experiences, and I've seen a lot of things that say that is 100% true. In certain situations. So
it sounds like it has to be the person who's wanting to do it, like really desperate for that experience, rather than drive off the street going, "Oh, I might try some mushrooms." Like it's a bit different to someone who's had a really big like fall in their life. They've lost a loved one, or they just want to get some. What's my purpose? What am I doing here? You know, really desperate. You can tell those people are going to have a good reaction. You know,
and something that is 100% true across the board is when they're doing these studies, they're in hyper controlled environments. So you're not just like shooting up on the street. You're like, it's a perfectly prescribed dose for what you need and who you are, and they
you're in a room that's regulated, like everyone's like watching you, like
they do tests on you to try to predict how you might react to the thing.
Exactly.
Not only that, but then also quite often, like I was reading this study, I was listening to someone that was commenting on this study done on American like war veterans who had like traumatic PTSD, and something that was specifically mentioned was that the only people they got to come onto this study were people where it was like last resort. You know, like they had tried everything and like everything under the sun to try to cure themselves of this PTSD that they had, and it was getting to the point where it was like something needed to change right now, or they were probably going to kill themselves, or it was always the very drastic cases, the last resort. They've been to a counselor for years, you know, they've tried every sort of spiritual non-drug healing under the sun, and none of it's worked. And that's when they had tried this.
I see that all over the news as well. Like nothing worked until they've tried some oil or something like that. And like that's what kind of like gets me in the point of mind, like in the state of mind where like it would be a good thing to like further explore these options, because if we've just putting them all under the bad carpet, then like what's the point of like trying anything new if we're not gonna like, you know, make it available for anyone else?
Definitely.
Can we go to a viewer question, not to pivot too much, but I don't know, I feel like we've run the drug combo.
That's 100%. I don't know how to say his name, but I saw the Kurt
so Kirsten's put one into the Discord. And
Let's go, Houston.
and good job.
Really struggled with that.
And you can call her KJ too. She's all right with that. But she said, I think a lot of people feel guilty when they become disconnected from their spirituality. While I find it normal for spirituality to wax and wane, for lack of a better expression, do you think it's more beneficial to roll with doubt and explore these thoughts/feelings, or instead work harder to get back to a place you once were in?
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm very hesitant with the trying to go back to a place that you were in where you were in a good place, because I don't think that there was something that got you out of that good place, and I don't think that it's necessary for you to go back, but I definitely think it's important to work hard though. So I don't know, it's a kind of a weird phrased question where I kind of like agree
Could
with
you-
half of it, but then
Could you
disagree
give
with
us
the
an
other.
example of like because I think I know what you mean, but what kind
Okay,
of yeah.
like for example, so the question was kind of saying like, let's say you're in like a perfectly good state, right?
Yeah.
Your life's going really swell, and your spirituality is, I don't know, you kosher. I don't know what, like you're fine. You know, like you just whatever, you're fine. And then like for example, one of your really good friends offers you some drugs. All right. And that
We always coming back to the drugs.
Yeah, I know. Back to the drugs. Sorry, it doesn't have to be that. Oh, someone does something that it throws you for a loop. All right, and all of a sudden you're questioning everything. You're not in a great place anymore. You're maybe you gave in and you did the thing that you didn't want to do, whatever it is, and you're kind of in turmoil. I don't think that it's necessary for you to go back, and I don't think it's healthy for you to try to go, well, I'm just going to kind of like, because going back to me signifies that you're trying to remove your experience, and even though it might have been a mistake, it's now a part of you, and I think it's very important that you, instead of trying to deny or to go back and putting your effort there, your effort should be on progression and taking what you've learned or mistakes that you've made and involving them in your spirituality and coming to a new place, which is quite often a better place. So I definitely agree with the fact that you should work hard to get there. But when you say go back to how you were, or back to like try to get back to that, like
it's forced. It's not what you should be, kind of thing. It's like, I get that.
I have a very strong feeling about this question, because I feel that the overarching premise of it is, should you deal with the current emotion you're feeling, or should you just focus on feeling good? I think that's the crux of it, is how I understood it. And I feel like in a lot of ways, we're programming society to focus on the positives, even when you're not even feeling positive. So if you're feeling negative, just focus on that thing over there, mate. It's good over there. Don't worry about what's going on inside yourself. Just be happy. I think that's why mental health is very stigmatized, because if you're not happy, then we should just be able to get over it. You can be right, but sometimes you can't get over it because it's really hurtful. And I think unless you go back to that stage where you're at and try and process where you are, you're never going to move on and find the next moment that you enjoy. You'll just be stuck in the past, And I think that's what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I've seen a really good video about the difference between sympathy and empathy, and like sympathy is always trying to silver line things. So you're like, oh, this really sucks. Well, at least this is happening, and this is going on. Well, at least you've got this going on. So, and that's not really very helpful for people. Whereas empathy is getting alongside them, or getting to a place where you can really feel what's going on. So I guess I'm kind of talking about it as someone else looking at that. But I mean, you can kind of think about it in your own mind as well, like rather than just thinking at least this is happening, actually getting down and dealing with what's going on.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, no, you go.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say the example I could think of is when someone's maybe like really connected with the consciousness of everyone around them and in a really good spiritual kind of place, and then they maybe get a new job, and it forces them to focus on just working really, really hard and getting a whole lot of money, and that's kind of what their life trajectory is taken. And maybe not necessarily a bad thing, but if they're feeling guilty like they were better off back then that's also work through. So.
Yeah,
Mm.
because that guilt's got to be coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
I think on that note, society has changed a lot, and I think we are becoming a lot more. Just the fact that we're having this conversation to me is proof of the times, even in the last 10, 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
you know, this stuff is genuinely being thought about from the younger generations down, from our ages down, I think, and it's making I mean, you guys touched on your last topic. I don't want to bring it back, but you know, the whole idea of masculinity, and that ties into spirituality. If you feel you can't be spiritual because it's feminine, or you know, or that it's not necessarily a manly thing to talk about your emotions, which is just rubbish. You know, we're just because we're men as men, we don't have emotions, we still care for things.
Yeah.
You know, I think that plays into what you were saying. You know, around the idea that you should have those connections with your friends. Otherwise, what are you really, you know, what are you really friends with if that's the case?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I touched on that last week as that that the church and that kind of spiritual upbringing did lend itself to being more willing to communicate with other men, especially because that was what the topic was on, about these issues, and being able to talk about these issues more, and being open just in general a little bit more than I guess I'm predisposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of the things we've talked about have been a big criticism on capitalism in a way. So I was gonna ask, what do you guys see? I don't know, maybe this is like maybe an unsolvable question or a silly question, but do you see capitalism as being a bad thing? I know we've had some positives in there too, but would you offer some alternatives? Where's your stance? Like, are you all socialists, or what? Are you all Marxists? What's the deal?
I really struggle to, I don't know, I've talked about this a bit, and how I kind of like, I'm wishy-washy, and I snap from one side to the other. I'm down the middle, you know, like I think that you need to, that no issue is clear cut. I think that everything has nuance to it, and that you can't do something and ignore everything else. You know, you can't just do capitalism. You have to do capitalism on some issues, and socialism on other issues, and like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and a piecemeal of that, and some issues it'll be like a completely crazy hybrid of these ideals that create the solution. But when you go, capitalism is the way, and I'm terrified of everything else just because of communist Russia, you know, like that is like something that you just can't do. And you can't, and it's not just on this issue, it's everything in life. If you focus on the straight and narrow, and you just go, this is my path no matter what, and you put your blinkers on, and you refuse to see anything outside of that straight and narrow path, you're setting yourself up for disaster. That's what I feel.
It's all about that balance.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm the same as work. I'm still very young. I'm naive. I don't know as much as what's going on as other people. So when they talk about capitalism, socialism, and stuff like that, Marxism, I'm just kind of with the flow. I'm just kind of like seeing whatever's working with us at the moment and seeing how it's going, but then also having my like inner thoughts is like, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And like, I don't have an outstanding thought. I don't say it's good. I don't say it's bad. I'm just kind of like living in the moment as it's not gone horribly wrong. Like, that's how I'm kind of seeing it at the moment. So, you know, if it does go down the wrong path, obviously I'm going to change my mind. If we do find something better, then yes, that's probably what I'll go for. But at the moment, I don't have an outstanding like yes or no to that answer as well.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we lose Vibe? Has he come back? Hello, Vibe?
I'm not sure. He potentially just muted.
Okay.
No, he didn't.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bronchi, for that raid, by the way.
No, go away.
No, go away. Lewis is happy with.
Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking about, are there many other viewer questions, or I'm thinking about we go back up to one of the initial questions that you posed right at the beginning there, where you were saying that that where, and I know this is getting like a little bit deep to everyone's kind of like personal lives, I guess, and obviously you don't have to share if you don't feel like it, but where do you guys find your purpose from in life?
Yeah, that is a very big question.
It's loaded, and it's so
it's
deep.
a very good question, though. Very good question.
Yeah, I'm willing to answer this. Like, I like like again, I'm going to always refer back to me not being religious because I find that kind of best gives like a base answer to my opinion. So since I'm not religious, I always try and find a logical answer to my problems, and to find a purpose for me is kind of stretching because I don't have that bearing feeling, like the overbearing feeling of religion is going to be what we're in for at the end, blah blah blah. Like I don't have that feeling. So my purpose for me is just, I don't know, it kind of is an extension of my morals. It's like making sure that my purpose is to live like a good person, like to make sure that I'm expressing the right things to other people that make me feel good. So I don't want to be a bad person. So my purpose, I guess, is to be a good person. That would be the way that I explain things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I guess I could talk about my purpose. I feel like I haven't defined my purpose yet. I feel like it's always evolving,
Mhm.
and I don't think I've found my true purpose yet. I feel like I'm closer than I ever was before, and in many ways, I think finding your purpose is the most difficult part of life. I mean, finding something that you can do that makes you happy and also have good relationships around you. I think it's just finding something that makes you so passionate that all you can think about is doing that thing the next day and having that in your life around, as well as for me personally, having positive relationships with your friends and family and not having difficult toxic environments all around you so that you can enjoy life for how good it is.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah, I like that.
I feel like, and once again, like this is something that is constantly evolving for me, and I would be hesitant to say that anybody other than like maybe the most spiritual of people in the world really finds their like true purpose. I think that we're constantly evolving, we're constantly adding to our knowledge, and from that knowledge, we're gaining new insights into the way we live and stuff like that. But I feel like right now, I'm probably a lot more, I guess, materialistic focused
Mm.
than you guys seem to be. I think that, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I just think that it's where I'm at in my life right now, and I'm using it to deal with some things, and I'm finding joy in the things that I'm doing.
Mm.
And yeah, so I definitely think that my purpose in life right now is, I know I don't want to say that, but like it's a lot more skewed towards the materialistic than it is to the spiritual. Yeah. Yeah, not that that's like really in depth or like revealing anything,
No.
but
Well, it doesn't have to be because like you can't really label someone's purpose as good or bad. It's just like it is what it is. Like if someone says they've got a different purpose, there's no problem with that. Like the fact
Yeah,
that you
no
want
right
something
or wrong.
materialistic, yeah, exactly. There's no wrong or right. You can't really like say it's a shallow answer if that's your answer because it's that's your purpose.
Yeah,
Mm.
100%.
And what about wrong or right? How do we know what's wrong or right? Sorry, another.
Damn it, I dig
straight
this
ask
hole.
that.
Well,
Yeah,
I
come
think,
on, Lewis.
I mean, we've definitely touched on it a little bit, but to put like kind of words to it, I guess, like more of a
Or is there
formed
like a
thought.
definitive right and wrong? Is there a thing's objectively wrong? You think some things?
I think that like, and I say this a lot, and you'll hear me say this a lot more. Like everything, every situation has an exception. You know,
It's like I always base like how things are. Like I have, do you know the chaotic neutral, chaotic lawful, and like chaotic evil,
Yeah.
kind of like thing. Like I reckon I could base every decision I've ever made on one of those. Like every like good or bad decision I've made is because it's like if I sort of something that's super super like nice to someone, it's just like it's lawfully good because it's in the better nature of them. But there's also sometimes where it's just like it's a good like decision for me because it only benefits me, and that's just like lawfully chaotic. It's only my advantage to that. Okay, and so when talking about good or bad, that's how I kind of guess good or bad is kind of for me. Like that's how I kind of place good or bad in a category is by seeing the benefits and the hindrance of my decisions.
Let me just bring up my my D&D thief character sheet.
Chaotic good.
Chaotic neutral, yeah.
I was just going to say, I feel that the idea of there being a rule exception to every rule. I totally agree with that, because at the end of the day, we're just making it up as we go along. I don't think any of this stuff is hard facts. I mean, you can't prove something that's to be true or wrong. It's just what we feel is
exactly.
fair
Like it's
and
just
right. Like you just can't. There's no scientific study that's going to prove that a guy was wrong. You base the evidence. You have a look at it. You make the best possible decision with the most logic you can, and you work around that. I mean, I think when you separate logic and you only have spirituality to decide everything, I think you're in a bit of a shady waters. I like to put it.
It goes the other way, you know, where you get like witch burnings.
Exactly. You don't. I mean, I am a witch, so don't give it away. But I don't want to be burnt. Okay, I've got very important things to tell.
Is this the police? Hello?
Grab your pitchfork.
Hey, don't get off.
He's a witch.
Shut the call. Shut it down. But yeah, I think you just develop your morals off your parents. Hopefully, they give you good morals, they give you good manners, and they teach you how to respect people. Because if you don't have those things, you got not much going for you in society.
And if they don't have them themselves, that they put places where you can potentially figure it out for yourself. Information to figure it out for yourself. 100%.
Yeah.
What about you, Fresh? Do you have an answer to that one?
I don't know. I'm always thinking about it, but I go between being like morally relative or morally objective. But I do the worry about everything being relative is that you can have people who are able to logic their way. That's a bad term, but they're able to explain their way into crazy things. And then if you say everything is relative, it's hard to say, well, no, you're actually wrong about that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more saying that like for example, you've got like I think that it doesn't work with just logic. I feel like there does have to be some spirituality and some sort of underlying belief or kind of decision made around what's good and bad in some sense, because if you just go logic, then you're 100% right. You get like a court of law where just because this like serial murderer did it the right way, you know, he gets off scot-free, you know, because there's not enough proof. And that's like a full logic based system where it's like, I think that when you bring in the jury, you know, what you're saying is you're recognizing that there is something more to it than just the pure facts. You know, you're saying that there's something that people need to decide.
There's so many holes in literature and laws. Like it wasn't written to be a mathematical equation. So you can, if you're a criminal or someone who probably shouldn't be in society, if they're dangerous to society, if they're a violent offender, and somehow they get through the holes of the law because they found a clever lawyer, I think that's very corrupt system you got there.
No, definitely.
So everyone's got to have, I guess I would say everyone's got to have a very well reasoned thought pattern for why things are right and wrong. The particular issues.
100%. And when you're making those decisions, I would very much hope that you're thinking it through. I know it's very easy sometimes to just like live life by this edge of your seat.
But there are just some people with like some.
What am I trying to say?
Like there's just some terrible ideas, and I'm like I was watching this video the other day about like this dude who was talking about how it's just terrible how women are in sport now, and like how it's just detracting from like men's sport, and it was terrible how politics in sport and all this stuff. And I was like, I mean, I feel like that is just objectively a bad opinion to have, and I was like, well, so am I meant to impose my opinions on him? I don't know. It seems like
Well, I think that it's I don't think in that specific situation, I don't think you would be imposing your thing on him. Your beliefs on him. I think it would be I know that's a hard one
because there's hundreds of things like that.
It's the majority though, right?
I feel like you have to find a way to detach from that, because that's not your responsibility to change their mind. I think it's sort of hard to explain, but I feel like if you tried to change every single person's mind that you met, you'd do your head in. Like, I guess speaking your mind to some people is probably healthy for you, for your own self-confidence, but you can't change the world. You can just change little things. So you being vocal and I guess finding a way for that not to ruin your day. I think that's a big part. The thing that's a big problem with society now is we're like an outrage society. We love getting angry and upset about stuff and letting every person know, and then making everyone else's day bad around them instead of just being like, well, you know what, I know this guy said on the news that there's 16 gangsters coming around to get you, but like, you don't have to know about every single thing unless it's at your front door. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't.
That's like 100% agreeable as well, because like, say like you were in his position and you put forward your opinion on females in sport, he would have the same thought. He would be like, oh, am I supposed to impose my thought? Yeah, exactly. So it is a case of just kind of, you got to let things be as they are, because they're going to sort themselves out, and it's just their opinion at the time. And it's just like, if someone was in your position, that would be your answer. So I agree. Like, some things you got to like let go, because you can't do much about it in your circumstance.
Yeah, I guess. I think I would still rather tell them that they're wrong.
Like 100%. Like, you can tell them that they're wrong, but like, it's not the end of the the end of the world if they keep their same opinion.
Okay.
And
but
to
then,
be honest, Fresh, if you're finding that you're in those, getting really frustrated, I got a great idea. Start a podcast. You can get all this
on there.
We talk about things.
Man.
No, it's true. But then, but my point is that how can I tell them that I'm wrong if I don't believe there's objective right and wrong? If I think that everything's subjective and up to situations and not opinions but circumstance.
Because most of the time you can still see what's right and wrong. Just because you can't prove it every time doesn't make it any less reasonable.
Yeah,
like,
and I think
just because you can't prove it doesn't mean it's not fair.
But some people can't see what's right and wrong.
No, but it doesn't matter, because you know what's right and wrong. You know what's fair, and there are a lot of idiots in society. There's a lot. If you look at the breakdown of IQs,
it's crazy. It's
the population is under like 100 IQ or something like that.
I was looking the other day. There's like 1/6 of the population can't like get into the army because it's so low. It's like crazy.
And I mean, if you think about that, those people are making informed decisions on every day-to-day life. Like,
they're all
how are they still alive? How have they made it this far?
But some of them have a lot of influence and power, and then it's just like,
I know,
geez,
and they're on news shows and get millions of dollars a year for entertainment. But what can you do? You can't be angry at the world. There's a lot of idiots, and they're
can't be angry.
the way it is.
But I definitely see your the loop that you're stuck in there. With the whole, if I don't believe that there's like a definitive answer to these like moral questions, then how can I ever debate someone again? How can I ever
if I'm right, how are they right? Like,
exactly. How can I ever try to improve the society around me if there's not a right and a wrong?
I think to retort that, the right and wrong doesn't come from figuring out in your mind. I think it comes from feeling it in your gut. And I think that sense is very underestimated and proven to be a real thing. Science is actually showing your gut instinct, like literally the millions of microbiome in your stomach make decisions. So if you've got a more healthy like body, you can make better decisions. You can make more instinctual decisions. So if you base everything on whether you can prove if it's wrong or right, I agree with you. You can't prove it. But I still think that we us as humans have great instincts. We're animals. Animals have instincts that don't ever let them die. Literally, like you can't prove. That's a fact. They just don't do those things because their instincts tell them otherwise.
Yeah.
But they don't have a book in front of them to tell them what's right and wrong. They just know by instinct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we as people have to like take that in as well. Like, our instinct is going to tell us yes or no to these questions. It's going to be a back and forth battle again, and then we loop back to whose instincts are right.
No. Well, I think a lot of the problem is we're not trained to listen to our instincts. We're trained to listen to our mind, and our mind knows all. And I think there's hard limitations to how much your mind can figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, some people got some bad minds, man.
Some evil minds.
Yeah, some evil minds. Yeah, not just bad.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of men in power in the past had some evil minds.
Someone's telling me that I suck at Fortnite in the notes.
Well, it's the score of the 1v1 battle again.
Oh, let's not bring that up, mate. Let's not go there.
Oh, no.
Let's not go.
Well, I think we've kind of covered most of the stuff we wanted to talk about. Does anybody have anything thought over the course of the podcast that they want to bring up now? Or
we've got a couple of viewer questions. Do you want to go through them?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So we got.
Okay.
We got Bronchi coming in first with what happens after you die.
Ooh.
Someone do the Keanu Reeves answer.
Wait,
I don't know what his answer
ones,
was.
the people
was
who
the
love
answer?
you will greatly miss you.
Oh,
He's such
wholesome.
a sweet man, Keanu.
where did he
love
say
him.
that? Was that in like the Matrix?
In-
It
or
was
something?
John Wick.
John,
No, it was
yeah.
like in a late night show.
Neo said it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, then I would have said Neo.
Okay.
Life and death.
Well, I feel like my answer is going to differ from a lot of your guys' answers because
Okay.
my answer would be just straight up, we stop existing. Like, that's my final answer. When you die, you don't have any more thought. You don't have any more, like, ability to think. You've lived your life. That's it. Like, there's no more. You don't have to worry about thinking about anything. You don't have to worry about where you go. It's just, you've lived for however long, and that is like your time. And that would be my answer. But I know that's very, very, like, cut off.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, there's like
Okay.
so many other questions, so many other answers that other people would have, but mine would just be like, we just stop existing, and that was what I believe in.
So not to I will make sure we come back to all of our answers.
Mm.
If that's kind of what you believe, then you get to another one of these like loops that we've been kind of encountering tonight. That it's like, okay, well then why not just be all about the material life and about making your life
Yeah.
continually better and better and better and better by like chasing that rather than
Well, that's the
living
thing,
in
is
the
it's like,
spiritual.
since I'm not religious, I don't have that urge to find something other than more material. So like, if I live my life with a whole bunch of money, I'm going to have a good life. Obviously that's going to make my life better because I can buy the things I want. I can do the things I want.
But does that ever end? Does that ever end, that wanting of stuff?
Well,
You don't feel satisfied.
that's when you get to the point of the person, the character of the character of the person. So I myself, if I get a whole bunch of money, I know there's going to be a point where like the money's just going to not be a thing for me anymore. Like, oh yes, I've got 20 gazillion dollars. I'm not going to be like, I want more money. Like, that would be the point of where I'd start giving shit tons of money out, and that would be like my I don't know. I wouldn't say there's a limit, but I'm going to say there is. I know when I'm going to have enough. Like, I would be happy with just having a little bit of money and then having to not worry about the rest of my life. Like, if I got a set amount of money, I wouldn't want any more money after that. But that's just me as a person. I wouldn't want any more money after that. But then again, you got people that want like all the money in the world and they don't want to stop getting that money. And that's what brings in the vast majority of the people that are saying, oh, materialism is just you want more stuff and you can never end kind of thing. But I would want to a certain amount and then I'd be happy. And that would be like my answer to that.
Yeah, right.
And so that's my loop for me stopping, is just like, I wouldn't want more money after that. So that's the loop for me stopping. Yeah.
Okay. I get that.
I guess I could talk about my purpose, I guess the meaning of life, or what happens after you die. I strongly believe that this answer is going to be very kooky, so bear with me. I have a strong belief that we have lives. I've had lives before this life. I've brought memories over from past lifetimes. I've seen visions of things that I can't explain. I mean, not in a drug state, just in my day-to-day life through meditation or different things I've done. And I believe we're all connected into the same thing at the end of the day. Like, we're all with this interconnectedness, and it just recycles that over and over and over again. And then my mind kind of just loses track of that because it can just keep expanding forever and ever and ever and ever. Everyone has their own journey in life. No one is the same. Like, I believe everyone's sort of hiking to the top of the mountain. Yet there's a million different paths to get there, and not one single person shares. You might have a similar path, but no one person shares the same path at the top. We're all going to get there. We're all going to have different things along the way, but we're all going to get there. And we all just recycle and have life lessons differently.
That's right.
Yeah. I definitely still believe in a form of heaven, which I kind of like got onto growing up, obviously in church. But I think I've come to believe that I don't think it's obviously what the church says it is. That whole like, oh, living in like a paradise with God. But I think it's like it's like a different state to our minds, where we can
the negative things, the things that we perceive as like the bad side of like the hard things about living in life right now are like kind of removed from us, I guess. So for
Yeah.
example, we're a lot more interconnected and with other people, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, obviously, because no one does, but I don't know, that's just what I believe. I believe that there is something there after we die. I definitely don't believe it's that's it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, what exactly that form that takes is something, but I definitely don't prescribe to like the church version of heaven.
Well, that's the thing as well, is that when I get asked, like, because since I'm like at school, I wasn't a religious person, so I would always be kind of not the outcast, but I would be a small percentage of the class or part of the class that did RE that wasn't kind of like, with the group talking about it. And so they asked me, oh, what do you think heaven is? You said exactly what my version of heaven would be if I had to describe one. So it's just like, I can agree with that as well.
I think, well, firstly, I believe strongly that we're never going to know, so I don't let it inform the way I live my life too much.
Oh,
but,
no, yeah, 100%.
Yeah. That I believe, similar to what Lewis was saying. So I think if you don't believe there's anything, then that's it. Then you have your chance to live a great life here, and then once you die, and you're done. However, being a Christian person, I believe you also get the chance at a second life, I guess you'd say, or a heavenly life. Haven't put any thought really towards what that looks like afterwards, but we also get the chance at that.
Yeah. There was another question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hawkins says,
oh, here we go.
do you consider your purpose in life, how you can best find your own passion in life, or how you can best contribute to society and increase the well-being of others around you in your local community or world? Oh, that's his first question. He's got two.
Oh, can you just read that one again?
So do you consider your purpose in life? He's kind of, it's a binary. So, can best find your own passion in life, or how you can best contribute to your society. I'll simplify it that way. So is your purpose?
I know with mine, I'd say a bit from column A and a bit from column B. I don't think I'd ever be one of those things because that's a bit selfish or self-driven. I feel like you can give to society and be also really interested in your passions. I mean, I think life is just a balance of everything. You don't have to do one thing. I think that's how I approach it.
There's the Japanese people have this really good word. It's called, I'm never going to pronounce it right, but it's ikigai, and it's like this really cool like Venn diagram of like your passions, your like how you can impact the world, where you can help out, where you can still generate like a well-being, a material well-being, and like all put together. And they use one word, which is ikigai, and it just kind of like sums it all up, and it's like almost like life purpose. It's kind of like, I guess that would be the best English translation. That's really it's like a balance of all these things. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree with Vibe. Like there can't be just one kind of like, there can be no like yes or no to that question, because it's just like, you want bits of both.
Got to be a balance.
Yeah.
Want to go second question or what? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. That's a hard one because and even though just before I said I was like I'm thinking that my purpose in life is a little more materialistic than you guys right now. I definitely don't think that like summarizes my life as a whole at all.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, you go in stages. You might be in. I feel like I was in a more materialistic state when I was in my early adulthood. Like when I was in my late teenagers, I was really obsessed with kind of like getting something for myself. And that time in my life, I needed that. And I think we go in ebbs and flows in our life. It's not one or the other, and there's nothing wrong with whichever path you take.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I get behind that. Agreed. And then what was the second one?
And then the second one was, do you think that religious people operate without logic?
Of course not.
Oh, good answer.
Like, no, like, there's...
Damn, book shut.
I don't know.
Pack up and go.
I don't know. I think that's... it's a fairly, like, I don't know, blunt question. Not like...
Roasted in the chat.
No, it's not... because since I'm on the outside, sometimes I see people like you get and it's like, what do you think? They're crazy, blah blah blah. It's like, no, they're not. They're normal people. We all have our own rational thoughts and our logic, and everything that we do has to have some sort of meaning behind it because we wouldn't have done it in the first place. So I don't think religious people act on just because God told me to. It's because it probably makes sense to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think yes, but I think that once again we get back to that situation of potentially IQ levels and different different cultures that I think that it's like they've grown up in a certain way with a certain belief their entire lives. And like when you're, for example, if you're born into a cult and you grow up in a cult your entire life and you never experience anything other than that cult, you are going to think that that is completely normal and completely sane and you were never going to get out of that or like potentially get out of that until you experience the outside world. There's that story about that church, that crazy church that
Scientology.
No. I mean, yeah.
Is it the Westboro people?
Yeah, Westboro Baptist, the
Westboro
ones that had the
Baptist,
big signs that say bad
Don't say the
things
word.
about them.
Yeah.
I was going to.
God hates the F word. Stuff like that.
But then there was the daughter of like the pastor and like one of the top up ladies or whatever of that church, which was basically very cultish, who was like violently defending their beliefs, right? And getting really angry and having arguments, but it was through someone on Twitter engaging with her and having a conversation with her and opening her eyes to the fact that, hey, there is a whole other world out here and they all believe this and this is why they believe that. That ended up bringing her out of that church. And I think that, but like that's a story of saying like, look, she thought she was 100% in the right. And it wasn't necessarily that she didn't have the logic to apply. It was that she wasn't given the information to apply logic to.
Yeah. And like you were saying before, like people, if people aren't, smart enough to make those logical decisions, then they kind of rest it on the fact that the religion has been the thing that they've been that's been driving them. So if they can't make a decision, if they can't, think, how is this going to play out? God will provide, kind of thing like that. I 100% agree. Like there's a certain amount of smarts that someone needs to have before they can actually like be the logical person as well as the religious.
Yeah.
That's a really 100%. Good
100%.
TED Talk. That one work. Is that where you watched it with that girl?
No.
Okay.
No, I have seen snippets of that TED Talk, but once again, like most of the
that's
commentary on that TED Talk.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Commentary on commentary on commentary.
Reactionary.
I was going to slide in a point. I don't know if this is off topic or not, but it's kind of like similar to what you were saying in terms of do you need to suffer in order to empathize or feel what other people feel, or can you just learn it? Is it something that you can learn, or is it something you have to go through to feel in others?
Are you asking that question?
Are you talking do you mean like as in do you have to experience something to learn?
Yeah, I mean not just to learn, but in order to feel what someone else is feeling, do you have to have gone through it yourself? And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to fully experience it, you probably do, but I think that doesn't mean we can't speak into experiences that we haven't gone through ourselves. Like the best kind of psychologists or therapists, I'm sure, haven't all been in like the darkest of places. Some of them might have been, but I'm sure lots of them haven't, and they're able to bring people out of it. So you don't need to have been there, I think. And very often, like at school, when I'm talking with kids about particular issues, it will be like, wow, you don't understand. Like I'm like, yeah, well, sure, I haven't been there, but I can still give you wisdom from a different perspective.
Yeah, I still have a brain. I can think of what it's like.
Yeah. Sometimes better than where you, because you're in not a good place.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I can agree with that. Like, I think that, when you talk to people, like, the things that you've been through, not everyone's going to have been through them. So when you talk to someone to help you out, because that's what, that's going to help you out sometimes, is if you just express your emotions and actually talk to someone about it, because that's what all these helplines and stuff, like talking about with someone, not everyone's going to be in the same boat on the other end of the line. So they're going to be there just to help you out, and for them to do it efficiently, maybe yes, they might have gone through something that they can relate to a bit easier, but then again, they wouldn't be in the position they're in if they didn't, if they couldn't empathize on just a thought level instead of like an actual like physical level.
Definitely.
So do you think that when people you meet can't quite seem to get it in their head, like they can't quite understand how difficult it is for someone, do you think that's just because they haven't been taught how? And do you think they can be taught once they get to that point?
I reckon everyone can be taught if they're willing to learn.
Yep. I reckon empathy is like a freaking muscle, man. If you exercise it more and more, you grow stronger and stronger in it. And it's not taught, like, it should be part of our curriculum. We should have a subject on empathy, man. Like,
Definitely.
It's so important. I always say, like, maybe the most important thing you need to teach your kids, empathy. Resilience is up there, and like identity, but empathy is so important.
Actually, I have a quick little story about empathy. When I was younger, we used to go down to the park, and we used to have like our family friends and stuff like that, and we'd just have a little lunch down at this like park that had a bunch of sand pits and like squirting water with like kind of plastic whales and stuff like that. Like, it was a really like pretty good park. And we went down there one day, and I remember we were like 3 families. There was about 4 or 5 kids, and we're all messing around. And there was this random kid that just joined in. We're like, "Yep, cool. Come on in, join the bandwagon." My dad showed up with a bunch of cookies, and he gave one to each of us. And and I was the oldest by like a year or so. So he handed me the cookies, and I was supposed to give them out. And my dad always says to me, like, I'm going to be a good person when I grow up, because I handed out all the cookies, even to the one to the kid, and I didn't give one to myself because my dad only gave us all one. He didn't know that the kid was there. So he's just like, you just handed that cookie out like it was nothing. And so I guess it is in some point like everyone can learn something because they go through an experience, but also that happened when I was really young. Like that was just something that I grew up with, just straight away, just knew how to do. So that means I didn't have to kind of go through anything to be empathetic. I just said, here you go, here's a cookie.
Do you think your parents had some pretty good ways of putting those values into you?
Like, I guess with most people, everyone's going to say their parents are the best. Like, their parents are always a person, but my family, to me, have been such an impacting force in the way I've lived my life. Like, I wouldn't be here at the moment without my parents. Like, a lot of things I've gone through, my parents have been my backbone. So I can't say anything negative about what they've taught me.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, I see like kids who really struggle with it because they just don't that's not part of their home life, or not part of how they've grown up. So that's when we need to do a lot of teaching of empathy to people.
No, I'll sign a petition if you start one.
Oh yeah.
Start teaching empathy in schools.
That's what the podcast is about.
Surveys.
Any more questions?
I reckon we're about that 2-hour mark. I reckon we hit the beer review.
About that 2-hour mark, ready for
hit the beer review and bounce.
Awesome beer review.
Yeah.
I'm gonna crack another one just so I can have a fresh little taste in my mouth.
Fresh. I like the use of the word
fresh. You can copyright that soon. I have to pay you like $1 every time I say it.
I just said I want a fresh taste in my mouth.
Oh.
You didn't notice, you realized.
TOS.
That ends on a sour note.
Well, Vibe, do you want to go first? Have you seen the?
There's some things we can say are definitely bad, and that's
so. Just so you guys know, I drank a what's called a Sol, and it's a cerveza.
Yeah, yep. Good job. Not a Carabeza.
A better shot of it.
Nice. But and then I drank a Black Douglas cola.
Oh, what? You actually had a full cup.
I can't even see it. Green screened out.
Dude, he's drinking invisible beer.
Invisible beer. I know. I should stop getting green beers.
Yeah,
that's a new beer, a green beer.
Do you want me to go first, and I can, I've got the criteria here. So all right, so the Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA. Great beer. Appearance, it was actually pleasantly light, but very cloudy. As you'd expect from a good IPA. So appearance, I'm giving it a 2. Drinkability. I think that I'm gonna give it. It's quite. I really like the taste of it, but it's too. You get those IPAs that are they're quite heavy, so it's pretty heavy. So I think that its drinkability, I'm gonna give it like a Last one I gave like full drinkability, and this one's less drinkable. So I'm going to give this one like a 5 for drinkability. So going 2 for appearance, 5 for drinkability. But taste, this is one of the best beers I've ever had. I'm going to give it a... I'll go 10. Probably go 9. I feel like I should reserve 10.
One of the best beers you ever
Yeah,
had.
this is really good. Like this hazy little thing IPA is really, really good. I didn't expect it, but I'm going to give it a 9. I've got to reserve that 10.
Hazy IPA.
Hazy little thing IPA. Really good.
Nice.
I don't quite get what the drinkability means.
So drinkability is like, would you buy a full carton of it? Could you drink it over the night? So for example, last week, Woke had one that was a peach IPA, and he gave it a really low drinkability because it was really sweet. So he had one. He was like, I couldn't drink another one of these.
Yeah, it kind of like Matt's. I don't know if have you ever had Matt.
It's like your rewatchability of it.
The Matzo's beer. Matzo's mango beer. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
We sell Matzo's ginger beer.
Oh yeah.
At work, yeah. And it's from Broome.
Yeah,
very
Broome.
nice.
Definitely. So what was that out of 20? Sorry.
I gave it a 9 plus a 7.
Mass while drunk.
Plus
Here we
2,
go. Here.
11, 18.
18.
Was that 18? Yeah, it's 18 out of 20. It's a good beer. It's a good beer.
That's a good beer.
I'm sticking with it.
18.
I'm sticking with it.
Nice.
Well done. Well done.
Better or worse than my Harry Potter.
Alrighty, 5. You want to go?
Yeah,
How is
sure.
your soul?
Mine was the Sol Cerveza. Así, señor, muchas gracias, por favor.
Muy bien.
So for appearance, I'd probably give it a... so it's out of 10, yeah? Probably like a...
No, appearance is out of 2.
Out of 2.
Out of 2, okay. So I'll probably give it 2 for appearance. It was quite pleasant looking. The drinkability for it was probably...
Out of 8?
Yeah, out of 8, probably around a 5.
Yeah, okay.
I reckon. I wouldn't go through more than maybe 1 or 2 of these, and I'd be quite happy with them.
Okay.
They're quite it's quite sweet. Got a really good like aftertaste. Like it leaves sort of a sweet aftertaste, not bitter aftertaste in your mouth, and it kind of makes you want to have a bit more. But like just really light, sort of summery flavor, tangy, sort of sweet flavor.
Yeah.
And I'd give the taste a 9 out of 10. Really, 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 really enjoyable. I'll definitely have more of these. They just taste similar to a Corona, but a bit sweeter and a bit different.
Nice.
Okay.
Did you have lime? Did you put lime in it, or you just straight?
Yeah, I put lime in it. So I got my plate of lime here that I've been cutting up the whole time.
Hey.
Man, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, see, I'm sneaky like that, but yeah, it just went great with. I love lime in my beer, so
Yes, no.
Nice.
We get so many disgruntled customers when they order a Corona and we don't sell lime. They're like, "Oh, this is travesty," and I'm like, "I'm sorry."
I didn't know that happened.
it's just not the same without it. It's something it adds to it.
Yeah,
Well, I would choose.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so who's me now?
Yeah,
you
go for it. I'll
So
finish it.
I had a pre-mixed drink, so it was not a beer. So by appearance, I don't like the look of this. I'm going to give this a 1. Like this is just such a boring can.
Hey, you can give it a 0 if you want.
Oh,
Yeah,
0.
you can
I'm
give
going to
it
give it a 0. A
Give it a
0.
0 out of 2 for
100% a 0.
appearance.
0 out of 2.
Nice.
This was
Nice.
not the best thing.
Good.
I'll be
And
honest,
then looking at it, it's going to be whiskey and cola. It's going to be just some brown fizzy liquid.
Yeah,
It's not going to be
I
the
was about
best.
to say that. I was like, every time I've ever had a whiskey,
They all look the same. Like there's no,
it's the same, and it kind of like brown and murky. Ugh.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, that's something is me. It's like I don't like brown liquor. I would always go for a clear liquor.
Yeah,
So
me
I'd
too.
always go vodka. I'd always go gin. I'd always like gin and tonic is my favorite drink. Like I would give a gin and tonic a way better score than whatever this is going to get.
Yeah.
The taste, it's such a classic whiskey and cola taste. It's like just a 5. Like it's not bad. It's not good. It's just your average taste. Drinkability, I'm gonna give it probably a 3. Like it's tasty enough, but for me, it's not the best.
So what was your drinkability? Sorry.
0 for drinkability.
0 for
and then I
drinkability.
had
0 for
5 and
Jeez.
and
what
a
was
0.
it? A 3.
Oh, 3.
So
Okay.
7.
So 8.
7.
Oh, wait, hold on. 5, 3, 8.
No, 8. Yeah, 8 out
Oh
of 20.
my gosh, 8 out of 20. Whoa,
Right.
right.
Would not recommend.
Not
They are
recommend.
not going to give you a free sponsorship.
Yeah,
anytime
yeah.
soon.
Oh,
We got-
I don't want one. I don't want one. You'll
Yeah.
see me next time with a bottle of Gordon's gin. Just like. Just
By the way,
yeah.
any beer sponsors out here? We're looking for a beer
Oh, yeah.
sponsor on the podcast.
Your name here somewhere.
Your name here.
Think about all the
Your
beers
beer
you
will
could sell.
Your beer
That'll
will
be
be in hand.
You,
my
you,
goodness.
you get at least 4 beers out of this from all 4 of us
I
buying
know.
it.
Yeah, straight up.
Fair enough.
Amazing value.
All right. I guess it's on to me now. So I had the once again brightness. I have not the same problem as Fresh, but you can barely see it. Chinky Monkey West Coast IPA. I didn't know what the West Coast stood for. But I just saw it and thought it sounded interesting and summery, which it was. To be honest, the can on point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it looks like a nice can.
Yeah, beautiful can.
Yeah, like it's beautiful. It's colorful. You know, it makes you think of summer and orchards and life, like greenery and stuff like that. It's really cool. Obviously, the brewery is from down south, so I love supporting local. So that's made me feel really good while drinking it. Which
Margaret River.
it all plays in. It all you know, don't want to buy it.
Professional
I
beer
actually
review.
almost bought a Victorian beer and was like, no.
Oh, jeez.
All right, so in terms of appearance, so the can fantastic, on point. The coloring, it was a lot. I don't know if you guys can see or not, but it's very murky.
Yeah. It's
Because it's a lot. It's
Yeah.
like that's
Like,
that
it's
beer,
orangey.
that beer needs to be hydrated.
Yeah.
And
It looks like I know what you're talking about, Louis.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
it's
almost
beard
like,
color.
it's just my beard, your beard color.
It is orangey.
You can't really see through it. It's very murky, which it is kind of, every now and then you can see the swirls of the sediment in it, which is a bit of a turn off. You know how like
Oh
when
no,
you get a drink
you
from
need
the
to have
shop?
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever poured a ginger beer into a glass out of like a
Oh
bunch
yeah,
of
there's
ginger
always
beer?
the little
Or a
like
Maxo's
the
ginger beer?
froth.
Mm.
Yeah.
And when you see it, it kind of just puts you off a little bit. So that's a negative for me. However, so I'm going to give it a 1 for appearance.
Oof.
Yeah, not a 0 because I mean, it looks like beer still, and
Yeah.
the can was on point. So
Yeah,
I'm giving it a
fair
1
enough,
for
fair
appearance. In terms of taste, I'm going to give it a 10. To a 10. This beer, I am loving it. In fact, loving it so much that you wouldn't be able to tell, but I've actually drank a couple of them.
Oh,
Because they were going down a treat.
wow. There you go.
That's very nice.
Like, and that plays into drinkability, which is, I could do an entire sesh on these.
Yeah.
100%. Get me a carton. The carton will cost me $90 probably. But man, I could smash these.
All right. There you go.
I mean, I have been. But yeah. Definitely recommend.
Did you do the highest
that was a 10,
level?
an 8 and a 1.
10,
19
8,
out of
It's
20.
a 19.
Jeez, that's amazing.
Dude, I'm from your 18. I'm gonna go like I saw what was it? The hazy
Sierra Nevada. Yep.
Yep,
Hazy little
I
thing.
saw that at the bottle. I text you and I saw that. Yeah, I'm gonna go and get one of them. With an 18 out of 20. I'm gonna try it.
Real
and
good.
You guys should definitely try this as well. Cheeky Monkey Brewery West Coast IPA. I really enjoyed it.
Looking at $60 a case for 16.
That's
not.
Oh,
I
16.
mean, that's not-
16.
Oh,
Yeah.
16 cans.
Yeah,
Going down the
very
whole
sneaky,
brewery.
very sneaky.
Very.
No, but they'll be like 2 standard drinks, right?
Mm.
Around about there.
Yeah, they are 1.9.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. These are only 1.3.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Are they?
Mine's in Mexican. I'm in Spanish, so I can't read it.
Mexican.
1.2 standards.
It
There
says
we go.
Curaveza something.
I've actually really enjoyed. Got the hydration bot in, and every now and then it pops up, and it reminds
Yeah,
take another
it was
good
actually
swig of
reminding
my
me to
beer.
drink beer. Yeah, it was actually. Me too.
Reminding you to drink
That's
beer.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Homer Sim, like a Duff ad. Definitely
Mm.
reminding you to drink beer.
Yeah. But yeah, cool, awesome, guys. Well, glad you beers, or not enjoyed your colas. Maybe you should switch to beer.
No, I'll definitely do that next time if I have a beer.
Next podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Louis and Viiibe. Shout out to their channels, guys. So
yeah, do you guys want to shout yourselves out? Tell us a bit about what you do.
Tell us about what you
And
do.
plug
What you've got coming up.
Twitter.
All right.
YouTube,
Well, I'm from the best city in Australia, Melbourne. No. All joking aside. Yeah, I stream mainly Fortnite is my main game. I do a lot of guitar and singing. It's kind of my my niche. Like I do a lot of acoustic guitar and singing, and I think Fresh and I can do some duets coming up soon.
Oh yes.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
but yeah, I really like talking about this kind of stuff on my channel. Maybe not this in depth, but I love talking about how you can get more out of yourself and just being full of positivity and joy and relax. I've got a relaxed, chill vibe. We really like to, have a bit of banter and like very dry, sarcastic humor, being an Australian, and I'm all about bringing people together and sharing and getting to know you guys. So if you want to follow me on my Twitch, this is Viiibe with 4 eyes, glasses.
All right.
Don't forget. And you're more than welcome to say g'day. Say from Fresher Stream, and you get some extra props.
Is that actually a thing?
We'll find out.
Yeah. Well, I'm Louis, twitch.tv/Louis with 2 W's and 2 Y's. Graphic designer, Borderlands entrepreneur, and just fuckery artist. So stop by for a good time.
Nice. Good,
Awesome.
Louis. And Woke, you may as well shout yourself out too, because
Oh yeah, good
on my
point.
channel.
Yeah. So, hi guys, I'm Mr. Woke TV. I'm a bit of a variety streamer, so I play lots of different games. At the moment, my kind of multiplayer game is Fortnite. I'm playing through The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. I'm playing Poke1, which is like a fan-made MMO with like asset rips of Pokemon, of Pokemon games. And yeah, I'm looking to get in so many more games. So yeah, tune in. I usually have good banter, and I'm dummy thick. So
Yeah,
you want to be there.
And obviously you're on my channel, but thanks so much. Make sure you follow every one of these guys. We couldn't do podcasts like this if we didn't. It's not like hard to meet people for a podcast, but like you need to have a certain temperament to be able to discuss things like this, like pretty meaningful things. And you guys have been amazing, and thank you so much for being on here. It's a true pleasure. We'll definitely should do it again. Also,
Definitely.
weirdly enough, did you guys notice that the video quality like improved exponentially? Like towards
Yeah,
the end
I
there?
just realized.
I was just like,
that-
what the hell, man? It
Yeah.
went like the whole
Yeah, it's so
podcast,
much
and then it was just
better.
like bang, better.
The whole podcast, it was like dropping in and out, and
Yeah.
like every time I like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then right at the end.
It's just suddenly good, yeah.
God
All
has
right, another
spoken.
podcast.
Spirituality.
All right, let's do it again.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you very much, viewers, for being here. We're off. Job, Lance.
Yeah.
See you guys. Thanks for having us.
See you later, fam.
Ciao.